In this DCS update, Eagle Dynamics pumps a large number of changes into the core engine, a new assets pack, and Afghanistan gets a major update, making it one of the more exquisite maps in the game right now. Want to join thousands of others who are enjoying the PC VR journey and flight simulation? Look no further than the Pimax Crystal Lite. It's an entry-level VR system with some of the best visuals in the business, and right now the Pimax team is offering a limited time trade-in deal on your current headset. They also have limited time free shipping to the US, EU, UK, Australia and Canada. It's never been easier to dive into this amazing experience. Check out the link in the description below for more information so that you can start your own immersive experience in VR with Pimax. Hello and welcome back to the DCS SITREP. I'm your host Prickly Hedgehog, once again digging into news and information about Eagle Dynamics' DCS world, which also incorporates a large number of third-party developers as well as a massive number of community contributions. You'll find those community contributions in the user files, and these range from skins to missions and other features that make DCS World such a great game. Now, as mentioned in the intro, we have a brand new assets pack, first portion of which features a large number of modern and Cold War era assets. Eagle Dynamics has said that the first iteration of the current Hill assets pack, as it is known, will feature the following: the FV-101 Scorpion light tank and the FV-107 Scimitar CRV. We will have a T-90A main battle tank, a T-90M main battle tank, a T-84 Oplot M main battle tank, and a T-64 BV 2017 main battle tank as well. We will see the M1130 Striker infantry combat vehicle, the MATV MRAP, which many people will be familiar with, the BMPT Terminator MBT support vehicle, the 9K 720 Iskander SIBM with the 9M 723K1, the M142 GM LRS MRL, the M142 ATACMS MRL, the Panzer S1 Spagim, the Tor M2 Shorad, the TOS 1A MRL, the M1083 MTV truck, the Iris-T SLM LN SAM with the Iris-T SLM, the Iris-T SLM STR SAM, and the Iris-T SLM CP SAM, the Tu-95 MS Bomber with the KH-101 and KH-555, the Mi-28N attack helicopter with the Ataka and Igla systems, the Project 22-160 patrol ship with the SA-15 Tor M2, and the Project 22160 patrol ship. So quite a list there of assets. Now, each one of them will come with high-resolution textures, LODs for both model and destroyed model, custom sounds, animations, summer, desert, and winter liveries, which is cool, so they won't be out of place in a variety of scenarios, flare textures, encyclopedia entries, and combined arm support except for the Tor M2 and the Panzer sensor and weapons control. So they go on to say that these new units are part of their ongoing mission to improve the DCS battlefield to facilitate the creation of engaging and realistic missions and campaigns. As always, your feedback is a critical component in guiding their work. Now, part of that work, I suspect, ties in or should tie in closely with what Wags mentioned earlier in the week, and that was about the dynamic campaign. So remember, he talked in a little bit of detail about the order of battle, which they are working on, and the logic of those things in order to create realistic scenarios. And he cited an example of what happens if the escorting bombers of a bomber mission are shot down. Do the bombers continue to the target and face almost certain annihilation, or does the logic kick in and those aircraft then return to base or route themselves back to some other escorting aircraft, so on and so forth? Plus, there was also talk about the logic associated with ground warfare and ironing out a lot of issues there, or hurdles at least to overcome, to make that more realistic as well. And of course, with the dynamic campaign, you do need, therefore, a large number of assets to help embellish the realism, and those assets need to move around on the battlefield with a degree of realism in this environment, because a lot of people will be critical if they don't move correctly. There's no point in having these things getting all choked up in choke points and not being able to route themselves across obstacles, etc., in a realistic fashion. So there's a lot of scripting and AI logic that has to be worked into this whole system. Now, as for the dynamic campaign itself, we still don't know whether it's going to be released in 2025, as was hinted at the beginning of the year. We were talking maybe Q4. So we'll have to wait and see what all this means, whether or not we get more information. But it was a promising sign that Wags was willing to talk about it. That's usually a hint that, one, certainly some progress has been made, and then we're excited to reveal the progress that they have made on it in order to keep the community informed. And it probably also indicates that there's light at the end of the tunnel with regards to this particular portion of the game, which, as we know, has been long overdue. We're talking well over a decade, and I think even Wags has admitted in the past that this was a feature of the game that he wanted to see much earlier. For whatever reason, it hasn't been implemented earlier, and when they did start trying to work on it and implement it, it was no secret that, effectively it was a lot more complicated than what they realized. And other developers of dynamic campaigns have said it is extremely difficult to do. And I think, in fairness, DCS World as an environment is a lot more complex than perhaps some other franchises are, and producing this particular product has been a major challenge. And Nick Gray has also admitted that, have we bitten off more than we can chew? We'll soon find out. I think they have probably bitten off more than they can chew. Whether they can resolve any of the complex problems that they're trying to solve, we will have to wait and see. A lot of core engine updates occurred, I think, to help facilitate the working of this. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens when you plonk all of these assets into a dynamic campaign scenario, and how the game runs, and whether or not it runs in a way that is still playable. Because in the past, I have noted that the more assets you have in the air, especially with high resolution simulation on these full fidelity modules, then you start stressing out your system quite a bit as the number crunching becomes a problem. So we'll see how things go. I'm excited by what I'm seeing, and I'm excited too for Wags' announcement. Now, ED provided a overview of the core updates that they have implemented this week in that patch. So let's go through that real quickly. A key feature was the AI logic that has been improved for both air and ground units, which we touched on just earlier. They have fixed aircraft AI issues, including things like the F4U1D's zero fuel behavior, improved group rocket attacks, tuned heavy aircraft landing angle of attack errors, and also aerial refueling improvements, which I haven't checked out yet. AI fighters using semi-active homing missiles will now respect radar gimbal limits, and helicopter traffic jams when landing at Jalalabad Air Base have been resolved. Ground AI targeting algorithms for the SA-11, SA-2, and SA-3 launchers have also been refined. SAM sites now rearm correctly, and collisions between ground units and parked aircraft have been addressed. Huzzah! Tunguska missile accuracy has also been improved. The mission editor gained a search bar for unit lists to assist when creating missions, and range rings for ground units now respect the hide unit setting. Weapon updates include speed limitations, aerodynamic tuning for the AGM-84 variants, seeker logic improvements for the AGM-88C, and corrected mass and drag parameters for various ordnance. Additional bomb skins expand visual variety. This is across the Mark 82 or Mark 80 series, I guess, bombs. And proximity fuse logic based on battery power has also been corrected, and the SNEB rocket effectiveness has been increased. Now, if you want to know a little bit more, do go back to the changelog. It is pretty extensive with regards to those core updates, many of which are very, very impressive and highly useful. Now, as is expected with all of these changes within the game, there has been a large number of updates to most of the modules. So we're talking here the Viper, we're talking here the Hornet, the Apache, the JF-17 Thunder, the Kiowa Warrior, the MiG-21, the F4U1D Corsair, which is of course in early development or early access and still receiving quite a few fixes there. There were some good ones ranging from sort of visual improvements through to audio improvements, and they've added a switch for the WEP, and they actually repurposed an unused fuel pressure gauge for the water pressure gauge. So quite a number of fixes for that aircraft, which really is delightful, fun to fly, and has been a great addition to the game. Now we're just waiting for that Pacific Theater of Operations pack that we talked about last week. Rounding out the list of things here was reference to the Su-33, which now has new Iraq instant action missions and some campaign refinements, which is good news there. Now, one of the big winners this week, and I think this is an exquisite update with regards to Afghanistan and its development progress. Remember, this is a work-in-progress map. There were some complaints about the colors and some of the terrain when it was first released, and I have to say, flying it right now in VR, thanks in large part due to some major breakthroughs in the software for Pimax, the clarity in VR right now, in conjunction with what ED's done with this map, is absolutely amazing. So what did ED do? Well, they went on to say here that the Afghanistan map received extensive terrain mesh, normal maps, vegetation, ground texture, and other terrain improvements. So there's quite a list of things there, and it's very, very evident as you fly around. It looks, as I said before, exquisite. So in addition to points of interest or POI areas around airfields and urban areas, the entire map has received a significant improvement in accuracy and realism, including from lower altitudes. An important addition has been the inclusion of forward operating bases: Clark, Gardez, Thunder, Talia, Camp Dubs, and Camp Julian. Additionally, the patrol bases of Kost and DC combat outposts have been added. These are now highlighted on the mission editor and FTAM map with green triangles. So it's good to see symbolism there also aiding you in finding where those things are if you don't happen to know off the top of your head. Now, other notable additions include the mausoleum of Ahmad Shah Durrani, Kabul's National Assembly, the Babur Garden, and the Kabul National Stadium. Many of the air bases also saw substantial improvements with more small and large object details, improved texture and lighting, and corrections to ramp and taxiway positions, and also the AI logic, which we talked about before, Jalalabad and the traffic jams there. So some issues resolved, which is good news. And as mentioned before, WAGS did a little video report on that this week. I will let the map do some of the talking there. It is, as I said, absolutely gorgeous. And as I said, Pimax has done a tremendous software update for the Pimax Play software, allowing you to tweak the quad views and the sharpening and just giving you a little bit more power and control over the way in which the rendering occurs. I'm still tweaking the settings a little bit. I'm still getting a little bit of stuttering with the increased visual acuity if you like, the general kind of bump in visual clarity. But what I'm experiencing so far has been absolutely amazing. Just using this map, it really is incredible. Now, the list of fixes and improvements is extensive. I won't go through that. They broke it into the various sections. So they started with an overview of the Afghanistan map updates. Then they went in and said, yep, we've done improvements to the southwest portion, the east portion, added in a lot more detail. It just looks a lot more realistic. They really have done quite a lot of work around the airfields. We talked about Jalalabad. They mentioned here Bagram. They mentioned here Kandahar. So really is an amazing looking map right now. And I'm curious to see how the work here that they've done on this, if it has any impact on the Iraq map, which is also in a similar holding pattern in terms of stage development. Both maps visually are impressive, especially the mountains and just the general terrain looks absolutely amazing. One of the things that I really was excited about was the vegetation. The trees look a lot more realistic. There's just a depth there. Obviously, the color palette has massively improved, and it just looks absolutely amazing. So now my task is just figuring out how to get the best out of certainly the VR. I'm not able to show you what that looks like in VR, unfortunately. So what you're reviewing as I speak, of course, is simply what's recorded on the 2D screen. And so it's not a true representation of what I'm seeing, naturally enough, in VR. So yeah, if you're a Pimax owner, a Crystal owner, then don't overlook the update. I know some people do have issues when they update, and then they say they get, not what they expected for, some issues with the software. One thing you can do, it seems to be a recommendation here, similar to removing your shaders, folders, and stuff like that from DCS World. Whenever there's a major patch like this, one thing you can do is uninstall Pimax Play and then reinstall it from fresh, because I have actually had it not update. I'm looking at an update on their website through the YouTube channel to say, hey, we've got these features, and I'm looking at mine and I'm like, I'm not seeing those. I uninstall it, even if I've done the update, uninstall it, reinstall it, and those things kick in. So, VR right now is not quite plug and play. It hasn't really been since we've started using it with video games over the last 10 years or more. And Pimax here have made a major step, and that will be the subject perhaps of a separate video here if time allows. I am really super busy on the house and home improvements, and so I've just taken a little bit of time out of my day to make a SITREP and just show you some of the amazing features that Eagle Dynamics has pumped into this game. And as I said, it just happened to coincide with some really cool stuff with Pimax, which is really cool. Now lastly here, not covered necessarily in the newsletter, a large number of campaigns, as is expected whenever there's a major update. Various campaigns also need updating. So these range from the F-16 First and Weasels over Syria campaign by Ground Pounder Simulations, the Raven 1 campaigns by Baltic Dragon, the Gamblers campaign, Arctic Thunder campaign, through to the Huey Last Show campaign by Sorrel Row, and the Debden Eagles campaign by Reflected Simulations. So it's a huge list. Again, I'll refer you to the changelog for the specific issues. These, unfortunately, are a fact of life as the game evolves, and sometimes things happen where the campaigns, something gets broken, basically. It can be as simple as a ramp being relabeled, parking spot getting a different number. That can cause problems. So it's a thing we've discussed in the past where the campaign makers will tell you, yeah, it's a constant, thing of keeping these things alive so that we can continue to play them. So anyway, overall, I think this week's newsletter has been very positive. Again, I'm very excited with regards to what Wags had mentioned in his little update, midweek update, and it's a promising sign of things to come as long as the progress continues in a forward fashion and we don't have too many setbacks. I'm very, very hopeful for a Q4 dynamic campaign release. I think this is going to be a panacea for a lot of people's frustrations.
1.35, and we heard you call it on guard. That's all we've heard.
Well, this brings us to the end of another DCS SITREP. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for the likes, subscribes, and the comments in the comment section below, which help this little channel chug along. I must say, I am extremely impressed with Edie's work on the Afghanistan map, so we'll leave you with that as we round out this week's SITREP. I am extremely busy on the home front right now. There's light at the end of the tunnel, but I've still got quite a bit of work ahead of me, and Mrs. Prickly Hedgehog as well, to bring the lounge, dining room, kitchen entryway up to spec. We're getting close, and I also have quite a few videos I'm writing scripts for in my head and wanting to get some review videos on the WinWing panel that I have, the PTO2 panel, as well as work with Pimax. As I said earlier in the video, a fantastic step in the right direction for getting the best out of the Crystal headsets right now. So stay tuned for that as well. In the interim, enjoy the map, and we'll see you next time.